Hello, my name is Tony Dong. Surf the web. The best Spider-Man games of all time. It's just about time to head to theaters to see Spider-Man Homecoming, the latest film from Sony Pictures and Marvel Studios. This promises to be one of the web-slinger's best movies to date, if not the best, and it ties in with the legacy that fans have loved for years. That legacy has spread over to video games over the past few years, with a number of great efforts that put us in control of Spidey's awesome abilities, from web-slinging to crime fighting. It'll no doubt continue when Insomniac Games releases its Spider-Man game for PlayStation 4 next year. For now, though, let's celebrate the legacy of some of the best Spider-Man games that you can play right now. From the good old days to some better efforts as of late, you'll find plenty of Spidey love to go around. Note we're talking about the full-on Spider-Man games. Of course he made appearances in other great titles, like Marvel vs. Capcom and Lego Marvel Superheroes, but this list is about celebrating his solo adventures. If we're going to talk quintessential Spider-Man video game experiences, then we have to go with Jack's highly impressive open-world adventure, which graced game consoles during the same time that Sony's Spider-Man 2 film hit theaters. The reason this game succeeded so much is because it provided a bevy of missions based on the film, but also a sandbox-style setting where you could do everything from rescuing stray balloons to stopping getaway cars to engaging in beat-em-up action with thugs. And, seriously, you can't go wrong with a game that features training from the man, Bruce Campbell. Following the success of the first two games in its Tony Hawk's Pro Skater franchise, Neversoft Entertainment was tasked with bringing the web-slinger to the PlayStation in full third fashion. It highly succeeded, creating a game that was fun to play, whether you were crawling around on the ceiling, waiting to ambush criminals, or taking on familiar foes like Rhino and Venom, who has one of the best lines in the game. He yells, "Surf the web," while Spidey sits in front of a computer. Not only is this game a blast to play, but it captures the genuine nature of the comic books. And, of course, Stan Lee has a voiceover. Excelsior! We talked about this game last week, and for good reason. Beenox made a smashing debut with this entry in the franchise, giving us control of a quartet of different Spider-Man characters, including the debuting Spider-Man. It made fine use of an open world to explore, while at the same time offering distinct touches for each different hero, particularly the zippy Spider-Man 2099. That might explain why the team brought him back for a follow-up, Spider-Man Edge of Time, which came out a little while later. Still, Dimensions remains its definitive work. I mean, you can't go wrong with a game that features Spider-Ham. Following the success of Spider-Man 2, Judge decided to take its Spidey design back to the old school, going with more of a comic-style cel-shaded look for Ultimate Spider-Man, not to mention sticking with the younger Peter Parker. The end result turned out to do quite well, keeping the open-world exploration while, at the same time, presenting a great new dynamic with fresh combat and challenges. For that matter, you can take control of Venom as well, beating Wolverine to a pulp and engulfing people whole, even kids, as you suck their energy and leaving them lying on the sidewalk. Let's see a game like Maximum Carnage do that. Out of all of Jack's efforts with Spidey that have come out over the years, one still manages to stand out, Web of Shadows. Not only did it introduce some new gameplay mechanics to the series with the symbiote black suit, but it also told an excellent story, involving all sorts of characters from the Marvel Universe. Not only that, but the combat was probably the best that the series had seen to date, whether you were pummeling Carnage's thugs on the ground, or even attacking from the side of a building. I'd love to see a follow-up to this gem someday. There was nothing like playing arcade games in the early 90s, with multiplayer favorites like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Data East's Captain America and the Avengers. But Spider-Man the video game stood out, not only because of its satisfying beat-em-up action, but because it literally had every single villain from the Spider-Man universe included, from Venom to Kingpin. Plus, it has great secondary characters, as well as stages that zoom out in between the beat-em-up sequences so that you can shoot enemies from afar with webs and other projectiles. This one's certainly a winner, and it deserved a solid home translation, but never got it. Thank you for watching. For the follow-up, subscribe to the channel yourself here. The movie's most effective scene contains no special effects. It consists of tombs, framed mostly in close-up, giving a ride to Peter, who sits in the back, glancing at him in the rearview mirror, and asking him politely about his plans. At the start of the short journey, Tooms doesn't know the true identity of his passenger. By the end, he knows. There are no blurted confessions, no threats. Faces alone tell the tale. What any superhero film needs, you might argue, is not a magic spider bite or a dose of atomic irradiation but the gift of time. Actually being a superhero is a kinetic, but somewhat formulaic existence, coolly accoutred yet perilously friendless, hence the desperate air of multiple playdates that wafts through the Avengers saga, and ever dependent on a steady supply of baddies. But having once been a superhero or, at the other end of age, yearning to be one but finding yourself thwarted to the predicaments that, despite the daftness of the genre, seem touched with human frailty and interest, and they explain the minor charm of what's film. Some viewers warmed to the Wasia's pose of Deadpool, but its blend of the cynical and the savage struck me as deeply unappetizing, whereas the spectacle of Spider-Man trying out a dummy voice on a low-grade crook who kindly offers him some free advice, saying, "You've got to get better at that part of the job," retains a welcome touch of innocence. More memorable still is the wide shot of our hero, clad in scarlet and perched as lonely as a robin on the front of a train as it clatters through the city, texting as he goes. The fate of the planet, thank heaven, is not his concern. He just wants to grow up. Is its footing. Watts has a poppy visual sense and a firm command of the frame. One sequence, wherein an injured and demoralized Peter must extricate himself from a pile of rubble, is a loving homage to a famous sequence of Steve Ditko panels from Amazing Spider-Man No. 33, published 51 years ago. Homecoming is the kind of winning film that could set him up for another half-century. Or at least until Holland is a washed-up 27-year-old.